I love to learn. And when I share what I learn even more. The motto on both my websites is Docendo Discimus, which is Latin for by teaching we learn. And that is definitely the case. A really good way to learn something well is to teach it to somebody else. So I've always done that. When I like to read interesting things and I like to share them with people, partly because I learn it better when I share it with somebody. I remember it better and I learn it better. And I often learn extra things by sharing it that I didn't even get from what I was reading. By teaching, we learn. There are some very practical ways that when teaching, we learn. One of them is that when you share something, you kind of have to organize it in your mind. You organize the material better in having to say something coherent. Also, when you know you're going to share it, when you're reading something or watching a YouTube video or something, and you know you're going to share this with somebody else, you listen better. You pay more attention when you're learning. Studies have shown that students do that when they know that they're going to have to get up and give a presentation on this or tutor somebody with it. They pay more attention when they're learning it in the first place. So it's learned better. And then also sharing is a repetition of the material, which is a proven way to really fix something into your memory. And I have often, when I really wanted to learn something, I've shared something interesting with multiple people, and then I really know it. I want to read you a little quote out of the book called The Only Skill That Matters. This is where I first heard about the Latin phrase docendo discimus. Here's the quote. Perhaps the first among them was Roman philosopher and Stoic Seneca the Younger, who said, Docendo discimus, or by teaching we learn. But this isn't just theoretical. In the modern era, studies have found that the act of teaching causes observable increases in both learning and IQ. Unquote. Several studies have found that when you're preparing, when you know you're going to teach something and you're studying the material, that you learn it better knowing that you're going to have to teach it. But another group of researchers tested two groups, one that prepared to teach somebody but then didn't teach them, and one group that prepared to teach somebody and then did teach them. And the ones that prepared and didn't teach somebody, they did learn it better than somebody that wasn't going to teach anybody or didn't think they were going to teach anybody. But the group that actually did teach somebody learned it even better. I'm going to quote here from a Psychology Today article called The Protege Effect. Students enlisted to tutor others, these researchers have found, work harder to understand the material, recall it more accurately, and apply it more effectively. In what scientists have dubbed the protege effect, student teachers score higher on tests than pupils who are learning only for their own sake. So I encourage you to just look for opportunities to share anything you're learning or to share anything that you want to know more. To teach somebody, you don't need to know more than your listener. You don't need to be an expert. You only need to know something they don't know. Okay, now how can you use this? Well, people chat about stuff all the time. When they say, what's new? To say, hey, last night I was reading something or I watched a video about X and it said this. When you're done, they have more knowledge than they had before, and you just learned something more completely and more permanently. Or on my way to work today, I was listening to a podcast on fasting. He was talking about a study they did on Mormons, etc., etc. One of the beautiful things about teaching something is that you don't lose anything. You actually gain something, and the other person gains something. So if you want to make your learning more permanent, you want to learn things better, and you want to contribute to your fellow human beings, this is a great way to do it. When you learn something, teach it to somebody, share it with somebody. And ideally, you would share it with people that you know it would help, that it would benefit. They would want to know it. You're making the things you're learning more permanent in your mind, and you're also benefiting people that you know. It's a no-lose situation. And when you're sharing stuff with people, it doesn't have to be something that they specifically need or want to know. Because, people will just shoot the breeze with each other just to be social. So you can talk about things. You can talk about really anything when you're saying, what's new. Somebody says, what's new? And you could talk about oh, I just put in a new lawn, or my daughter's getting married, or, there's a lot of things that you could talk about, some of which they may not be interested in, but they just want to know what's going on with you. And if you happen to be interested in something and you share it, I just learned this thing, that it's interesting enough for them. It doesn't have to be, if you're learning about gardening and they don't happen to have a garden, and they're not even interested in gardening, just because you're interested in it, it's kind of entertaining and satisfies that sociability factor. So anyway, this is a great way to benefit the world, to make it a more interesting world to live in, and at the same time to learn things better for yourself. Okay, that's about all I had to say about this subject. This is Adam Lee Kahn on The Atom Bomb.